folks, thanks to me once again. Today we're looking at the VX217 Kit by Augvape. This is a dual 21700 device. Along with that, it also comes with the intake sub-ohm tank, courtesy of Mike Vapes, big YouTube reviewer, so go and check him out. Big thanks to Nature Vape for sending me this over for review. Let's crack on. And that was the Augvape VX217 Kit that comes with the intake sub-ohm tank. A pretty cool looking kit, and it's nice to see some 21700s, especially dual 21700s. You're not getting much more in terms of wattage. If you are vaping at the higher wattage ends, 217 watts is your maximum with this. A couple of nice features with this. I think it looks pretty smart. So let's talk about it, shall we? We'll get onto the intake sub-ohm tank very shortly. First of all, let's start with the device. Now, first of all, this is a very solid device. The one thing that first of all surprised me about this was just the actual height. It is very short. It is quite thick and wide. It is perfectly suited for my hands. Now, I haven't got the largest of hands, but I've got quite big hands. The curves around this side are really, really nice. But like I say, it's solid, it is heavy. With them big, chunky 21700 batteries, it really is quite a heavy mod. Going back to the size, I'm really, really impressed. I know 21700s aren't a massive difference in height compared to 18650s. I'm just surprised they managed to get that much into that. I mean, if you compare that to some of the smallest dual 18650 devices, this one's only a slight bit taller. Really, really impressive. The actual fit, feel and finish is very good. One odd thing about this is this back panel, which you can unscrew and that will expose your batteries. It's kind of like they were going to do something, but then they decided not to. I'm not quite sure. This bit here, maybe it would have been better if that was just complete, there was no lines. It's a little bit of a kind of dirt magnet, if I'm honest. The battery door clicks in absolutely fine. I haven't really had any problems with the battery door, and I always go on about battery doors. Going on to the buttons. Now, the main fire button is this big chunky thing here, perfectly suited for your thumb, but you do have to make sure that you fire that pretty much bang on in the center of that button. Otherwise, you don't quite get it. You have to be right bang in the middle. A bit weird. The first thing I noticed when I used this device, first of all, was actually how dim the display was, especially when you're in a bright area. Even at full brightness, I really wasn't very impressed with the actual brightness of this screen. It could do with doubling in brightness, if I'm honest. It really is a little bit on the dim side. The whole menu, the actual menu options are all fine. Now, there has been, or is going to be, an update from Augvape. There is some odd option here to choose your temperature mode, but there's no actual temperature control mode, which I believe they are removing altogether. So if you've got one and there is some kind of weird options there for TC, but it's not actually temperature control, then just ignore it or check for a firmware update. The dial is where this thing is a bit different to the norm. Usually we just have 2 or 3 buttons. You have this very weird spinny wheel dial. Now, the first thing I will say is once you get the hang of it, it's fine. But actually to scroll with one finger, it doesn't always. It's a bit annoying. It's a bit annoying. It's almost like either the wheel's too small or the actual kind of grippy knurling around it isn't really grippy enough so you can't spin. So what I end up having to do is kind of use both thumbs and it will turn absolutely fine. Recently, there's been a lot of people wanting dual 21700 batteries. With these 21700s, you are getting more battery life, especially when you use a coil like this that only really wants 65 to 70 watts. You're getting at least a day's life, and in my experience, you're getting 2. There is one problem, especially with this device at the minute. Now, I don't know if a firmware update will sort that, but the problem is once the batteries get down just below half, probably about a third of the battery life left, I start getting low battery problems. And it's happened both with a dual 21700 or if I use the adapter and use 18650s. Once that battery life and the battery indicators go down below half, yeah, it starts coming up low battery. One little trick around that, if you do get caught short, I found, if you just take the batteries out, pop them back in again, you can probably get another 20 to 30 pulls before it does it again. Again, carry the cycle on, do it again. Take the batteries out, put them back in. It's not a great idea though, and it is very, very annoying. So hopefully with a firmware update, they will get to the bottom of that problem. But at the end of the day, having a dual 21700, now you are sacrificing a bit of size. It's obviously quite a big, heavy device. Not incredibly tall, but it is a heavy device. But the battery life you get from it is really, really good. So let's get talking about what Mike Vapes has been up to. And now he released the intake sub-ohm tank a couple of months ago, and nicely enough, they have included that tank with this VX217. And I'm really pleased about that. The first thing I would say is the actual filling method is very, very simple. The drip tip fits in nice and snug. The airflow, which is at the top, adjusts beautifully. It's a very, very simple, clean looking tank. There's not a lot to it. There's not all kind of lettering and words and pictures and all that kind of stuff. Very, very clean. In fact, if you didn't know much about this tank, you wouldn't even be sure exactly what it was. The only real thing is at the bottom where you can see Mike Vape's signature and all that kind of stuff. So very, very simple, very smart looking. And with a bubble glass, you're getting a pretty good capacity as well. Filling the intake is very, very simple. Just make sure you hold the glass and twist and off it comes. Very, very simple indeed. No real problems there. Now, it does get a little bit mucky, but that's to be expected. You get that on all kind of things. But once you've done that, twists on lovely, and you're not getting leaks once that's on. Really, really good. One thing I do like about this, and I'm quickly going to unscrew the tank from the device, you can replace the coils without having to empty the tank. But one thing I would say, make sure your tank isn't that full when you replace the coils, because you will find that that will pour out through the drip tip when you tip this upside down. But if your kind of e-liquid levels around half or less, you can quite comfortably take the coil out without having to empty the tank. Once you unscrew the base here, you get to it there, and all you have to do is just pull that out, push fit coils, and pop a new one in, and you're ready to go. CLAPTON mesh. Now, we haven't seen that before, have we? CLAPTON mesh, basically like you've seen in the download, this is basically CLAPTON wire that's kind of ran around the inner diameter of the coils. I think it looks pretty smart. It's definitely something different. We haven't seen this before. Now, these coils do come out at 0.2 ohms and they're recommended between 60 and 75 watts. With a dual 21700 device, I've found that I've got almost 2 days life every time out of that coil. At 65 watts, I've really, really enjoyed it. I've got the airflow all the way open. Let's give it a little bash. First of all, let's talk about the airflow. Let's get the airflow out of the way. For me personally, that is a slight bit airy. Now, I would say when the airflow is all the way open, it's not all air. It is ever so slightly restrictive. So if you are looking for a really airy vape, you're not going to get that with this. But personally for me, if I drop that airflow just about halfway, keeping it at 65 watts, I've really been enjoying it. You obviously get a very decent, very respectable cloud out of this. And the flavour for me really does remind me of the days when I used to make those dual coil CLAPTON builds on the Drop Dead RDA. Really, really do. You get more of the higher notes, the sweeter notes from your liquids, especially if you're a fruit flavoured vapour. You're going to really enjoy using this for them sweet high notes. With the richer, deeper flavours, it does lack a little bit in that department, but it certainly doesn't take away from the actual flavour and the vape experience from it. It's really, really good. I found at 65 watts, airflow halfway open, It is an absolute banger. And to top it all off with a dual 21700, I'm almost getting 2 days battery life out of it, which for me is absolutely cracking. So what are my final thoughts on the Augvape VX217 kit? Well, let's start with the intake sub-ohm tank, shall we? I really don't have a lot to complain about, if I'm honest. I really like the look, first of all. It looks very, very smart. It's fairly easy to feel. The airflow adjusts nice and easy. You're not going to get leaks out of this as it's a top airflow. The coils. The coils are where this thing really, really shines. I've had 3 weeks out of a coil. You really can't ask for much more than that. Now, maybe I got a bit lucky. Maybe the coil just lasted very well. Maybe you won't be so lucky. If you're getting 2 weeks out of a coil, then I'd say you're doing really, really well. 3 weeks for me, I was very, very impressed. And the flavour is really, really good. Like I say, it does remind me of back in the day, my dual coil CLAPTON builds. Higher notes come out really, really well. The sweeter notes come out great. The darker, richer notes, not so much. But for me, that doesn't really bother me because I'm more of a fruit e-liquid vapor anyway. So I really don't have many complaints about the tank. The coils are brilliant. Very, very clever idea to work really well. Let's move on to the kit, the device itself, the VX217. Let's start with the good stuff. Let's be nice first of all. I really like the form factor and the style and the ergonomics in the hand. The weight is a bit weighty, but just to feel in the hand, your thumb is perfectly on that button, and it needs to be perfect on that button to fire. But it's just very nicely made. It does feel very solid. You've got 2 big heavy batteries in there, so that does add to the weight. But the actual height of it is what's impressed me the most, just how short it really is. Really, really nice. The bad things. So first of all, the actual display. The display and the menu options are fine. Obviously, there's going to be an update, which I haven't got. There's a temperature control issue, and there's also a battery level issue that's bothering me. The button being odd to press bothers me a little bit, and along with that, obviously the display isn't quite bright enough. I find in bright areas, it's just not quite bright enough. The main thing really is to do with this weird, horrible spinny wheel, and it's just a bit of a pain to adjust. You end up having to kind of hold it like a, I don't know, like a little controller or something. It's a bit weird, a bit strange. Overall though, I've still enjoyed using it. I've enjoyed having the battery capacity, the 2 21700 batteries. That's been really, really good. I've enjoyed nearly 2 days vaping out of this each time, which is what some people, especially people like me, are looking for. We're looking for a good battery life, and at 65 watts, yeah, you're getting close to 2 days. So I hope that's helpful, folks. If it was, hit the like button or subscribe if you fancy it. Of course, you can see my latest review there and a random one there. And a big thanks to Mark from Nature Vape for sending me this over for review. I'm FLAVOUR Vapor. Thanks for watching.